Hey, I'm Gary Streigler. Obviously, I'm not in my shop this morning. I'm at a friend's house helping them with probably one of the simplest but best remodeling jobs that you can do to improve a house. Now, this is what's probably the most standard door that was used in the United States for about 20, 25 years. It is a 6-panel textured hollow core door. Nothing wrong with this door. It gets the job done, but a lot of folks are kind of getting tired of this look. They want to upgrade, change to something else. So right here in front of me, I'm going to get this out of the way. We've got a much more contemporary design. This has got square edges. It's just one big panel. But what we're going to do, instead of having to tear the door jamb out and everything, we're simply, which is what you'd do if you bought a pre-hung door, you'd have to tear everything out. But I'm going to show you how we can use a special router bit and a homemade template to make the hinges on this match the hinges on that door. So first off, I'm going to say that when I get a chance, I like to put a bevel on the edge of a door. One thing you need to know, sometimes doors, like this is a 2.0 door, that means 24 inches, 2 foot 0 inches. It's also a 6'8", 6 foot 8 inches, which is 80 inches. Just for the record, it's going to be a right-hand swing door. But this is the hinge side. First thing I did when I got this door is I looked, and almost all doors have a slight bow to them. What we want to do is put the hinges on this door in such a way that when it closes, it's going to hit the stop at the top and bottom, and the knob will kind of pull it shut. If you do it the other way, it's going to hit in the middle, and the top and bottom kind of rattle, which is not a great look. I'm going to say this now because I might forget later. Make sure when you're replacing a door like this, when you're done, if you have to cut it off or whatever, but when you're done, make sure you prime and paint the top and bottom of the door, because you don't have any warranty if you don't get that done. So, what's a right-hand, left-hand door? This is the way that I learned, oh man, it's been probably almost 50 years ago. If you imagine yourself standing with your back to the door jamb, the way I learned it, this is called a brass butt hinge. What my dad taught me is put your rear end where the hinges are going to be. So I'm backed up against the jamb. If the door is going to swing this way, it's a left-hand door. If it's going to swing this way, it's a right-hand door. So this is a right hand. Now, while I've got this hinge out, I want to show you too, why would I want to bevel the edge of this door? So, if this hinge is sitting like this, and maybe one of these screws is out a little bit, or there's something off, it can tend to bind up. What that means is you push the door closed and it kind of doesn't want to go and you have to push it. But if I bevel, say the door's going to be on this side, if I bevel the edge of the door a little bit, now the hinge is opened up. Even when it's closed, it's open a little bit, and so that helps prevent it from binding up. I'm going to use a planer to put a little bit of a bevel, and on this door, the bevel is going to be this way. So the hinge knuckle is going to be coming out here. The bevel is that way. The hinge knuckle needs to come out on the long point of the bevel. All right. Set this down here. Now, this is an old planer that I've used for years to bevel the edges of doors. There's lots of different options that you can use too. I've just got to make sure this fence is on angle, so I'll make sure that the fence goes on the side where the high point's going to be. You can't even buy this planer anymore, by the way, but again, there's lots of different planers that you can buy, and you could actually, even if you have a little hand planer, you can do this on a table saw if you want to, on a joiner if you have a buddy, or I have, even if I had a planer that didn't bevel like this, you can actually just clamp a sacrificial piece of wood to the edge of the door with one edge up beside a little bit higher so that it's tilting the planer. All right, here we go. Now I'm trying to take off just a little bit because the door is a full 2 foot wide, 24 inches, and the door we're replacing is too. So my goal was to plane the edge of the bevel without taking any excess material off. All right, so that's cut. And by the way, that bevel is, you can't see it, but there's a strong 1/16 of an inch clearance. That's about how much I beveled it on the length of the door. Now, to put the hinges in there, or to route for the hinges, I made this plywood template, and I'm going to be using a router bit that the bearing is up above the cutter. Here it is, and the bearing and the cutter are about an inch and a quarter outside diameter. Half of that is 5/8 of an inch, which this corner radius, that's a 5/8 radius, which is kind of standard. So to get the 5/8 radius, I need a bit that's an inch and a quarter. And this bearing barely rides on what we've notched out. And there's the dimensions of this cut out of this piece of plywood is exactly the size of the hinge, or should be. It's going to be real close. Got rid of my hinge sooner than I should have. There it is. So again, it's just really close to fitting tight in there like so. And we're going to want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of material on the back side of the door. In other words, again, you may not be able to see it, but about 1/8 of an inch back here. Okay, so the way I created this actually is I just literally laid it up against that door that we already had and marked out each of these notches. We went to a table saw, laid this down, cranked the blade up. You can see it overcut on the bottom, and then we just made these cuts in the miter saw. Anyway, all right, so one of the things you need to know, the top of this was made to line up with the top of that door. If you happen to be routing both a jamb and a door, you would need on the door to make your jig flush with the top of the door, but then on the jamb, you'd want to drop it down 1/8 of an inch so you have clearance across the top of the door. That's important. All right. So every hinge template that I've ever used required putting some pins in the into the door. So I'm going to just shoot. These are actually, and the jig is designed to be flush with the edge of the door, by the way. And because I sure don't want it moving on me, I'm going to probably put more than I ought to. But these are a 21 gauge, so it's a pretty small hole. All right, now, I just realized I'm going to take a break for a second because a minute ago I was digging around in my truck looking for safety glasses. Believe it or not, I got distracted, so give me just a second. I'm going to go get some safety glasses. Okay, so I'm back with my safety glasses, and actually it was very, very fortunate that I'd forgot my safety glasses, because between walking to my truck and back, I thought, wait a minute. I actually had that set up to route for a left-hand door, not a right-hand, which is what we need. So, generally I like to bevel both edges of the doors anyway, because it'll keep it from dragging as it opens when it's beveled. Anyway, I've gone ahead and beveled the other edge of the door, and now I'm ready to start routing this door. So that's why the jig's in a different position. The top of the door is there now. Double check that. And all I can say is, it can be a little bit confusing when you're trying to think about what you're going to talk about while you're actually doing it, and I'm not getting any younger. Anyway, this is set up right now. There is the bit. And we're really, really going to do it this time. Now, all I need to do is make sure that my router's sitting down flat on top of this template, that I have the bearing out away when I start. I'm going to leave the router sitting in place till it stops turning, and that looks fantastic, all right? So this is sure a lot faster than trying to chisel them out by hand. So I had some help from my buddies from Whiteside when I got ready to do this setup for routing the hinges. Basically, this is just one of their 1 1/4" bits, and they just gave me an 1 1/4" bearing that slips down on top of it with a locking collar. So it's actually two things you have to order, but it's an 1 1/4" mortising bit with an 1 1/4" bearing. 1/2 inch shank just drops down over it. The people at Whiteside have always been so good about any time I ask them, say, here's what I want to do. They go, well, here's what you need. And they've got great bits, very economical, and they last a long time because they've got lots of carbide. So now that I've routed for those hinges, mortise for the hinges, I'm going to just pop this off, and looks like a couple of them stayed in here. And you may have seen the little short video we did on what to do with a nail that's coming through. You don't ever want to try and clip it. You want to wiggle it back and forth until it breaks off. Because if you try and clip it, you're going to end up with just enough nails sticking out, probably to get your finger. These nails are pretty small. See, once I've done that, I can run my finger right over it. Trying to make sure I capture all these nails in my nail apron, although they're small. I would not, it just kind of feels wrong to leave them in my buddy's driveway. Anyhow, okay. And now, how did we do? If I can find the hinge. All right. Man, that hinge sits in there. That radius is very, very good. And the depth is right where I want it to be. So super happy about that. What we're going to do now is we'll need to go ahead and drill the pilot holes, get half the hinges on this side, and then we'll go see how we did putting it in place. Well, I'm really happy to say that the hinges worked out great. I had to make this the tiniest little bit of adjustment on the bottom one, but they're all good. When I close the door, it closed beautifully, hit the stop just like I wanted to. It's a little bit tighter at the top than at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is take this back out there and take my little planer and take a little bit off from about right there all the way up the top to give me a little bit more clearance. I mean, the door actually works great now, but you know, if they get kind of zealous with the painting or something, it might not be so good. The other thing that we need to do, we've got to have a doorknob. So we're going to close the door and carefully mark the center of the striker plate. Then I'm going to show you how, there's all kinds of different jigs and things for drilling doorknobs. And I've got a kit that's actually a very professional one. But if I'm only doing one or two, I actually just generally either use a regular drill bit or a hole saw. So I'm going to show you how, just to drill a doorknob, really straightforward. Remember that almost every doorknob I know of takes a 2 1/8 inch hole and almost always 2 3/8 inch back in from the edge. Every now and then you run into a commercial doorknob that has a 2 3/4 inch back set, but residential almost always from the edge back 2 3/8. That's to the center of the hole. Okay, so I'm going to swing this door closed. We're going to mark this, and then we'll jump outside and take a look at the last couple things we need to finish this operation. So here's where I've marked. That's the center of the pilot of the drill bit. And here is that hole saw. Now, one of the reasons I like to use a hole saw, it has this pilot bit. And if you see, the pilot bit sticks out past the teeth. What I can do is I drill through, if I'm watching, when I see that pilot bit start to poke through the other side, I'll switch to the other side and drill back, and that way the door doesn't blow up on, you know. You can also use a bit like this. This is a very nice Forstner bit, really sharp, but no matter how sharp these are, sometimes when you're pushing on the back side, it tends to blow out. So I can use a bit like this, but what I'd want to do if I was going is I want to take a scrap of wood, clamp it extremely tightly to the back side so that this would drill into without blowing out the face on the other side. So, but really a hole saw is pretty much my go-to. Unless, again, I got a kit that does all that. If I did 20 doors or something, I would. Anyhow, okay, one last look. I always like to double check. I know I marked that from the bottom up. This is all good. So I'm just going to get right there. Oh boy. We have an incredibly dull pilot bit. So I'm going to stop for just a second. I'm going to drill a hole all the way through, but hopefully we'll make that a little bit easier. Just a small hole, but I bet you even this small hole will help me. Okay. Hoping that little bit of a relief will make it easier. If not, I'll get a bigger bit. Because really all that's doing is guiding it. I don't even need to drill that much. All right, here goes. Okay, I'm starting to see that pop through the other side. And by the way, you might have noticed I'm kind of rotating it around a little bit. That's the thing about these hole saws. They're super forgiving once you get them into the wood. Now you do want to be a little bit careful kind of as you get to the end because they can kind of grab. I might have been wise to have held on to this even with two hands or something, but there's that hole. Now the next hole we need to make is the one that goes straight down. We'll mark 11/16, double check myself. Because this is an 1 3/8 thick door. There are some doors that are 1 3/4. There's even a few 2 1/4 inch doors out there. But just about all interior doors are going to be. So what I'm doing is I'm looking to try, and when I start to drill and the drill bit starts to hit the wood, I want it to kind of be hitting equally all the way around. Fortunately, this bit was a lot sharper than that pilot bit on the hole saw. So, got those holes drilled. The next thing we need to do, though, as you can see, there's some depth here. So when I put this down, it just sits on top of that. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and drill down there a little bit further for some relief. Yeah. So what I've got to do is I've got to mortise the edge of this door to let this sit in there flush. And I'm going to make a very simple little router jig to do that, which you may have seen me share before. But I'm going to step aside for a second, make that jig, and we'll be right back. So here's the little jig that I made. I made it out 3/4 pine. You can make out about anything. These pieces in the middle are this width, maybe just a little bit more. And then the distance from here to here is just about exactly that amount. Now, this is another white side router bit that I'm using. It's a pattern bit, and it's a 1/2 inch bit. This is one of the times I like a 1/4 inch shaft bit because it fits so nicely in this little compact router. And same thing, this is 1/2 inch, the bearing's 1/2 inch, so whatever size hole I put in here, when I route it, that's what I'm going to get, and I'm going to get 1/4 inch radiuses because that's a 1/2 inch bit, and it's really nice. Most of these door latches come with 1/4 inch radiuses, but if it was square, I just have to take a chisel and square it up. Now, I put some marks on here that are about the width of that latch. And as I'm looking down here, I'm centering this opening distance right on the hole that I've got. I'm going to shoot that one in first. And I'm just going to double check myself. It looks like it's lined up fairly well. Well, maybe not so much. It's about 7/16 there. And that sure looks good. Probably put more nail holes in here than I absolutely need, but I sure don't want it moving around anywhere on me. Might even try and bump it just a fuzz. There we go. All right, so when I put this in there, I'm going to start it in that hole that's there, because if I dropped it in and hit some of that wood, it might jerk around. So I'll make absolutely sure I didn't miss anything before I pull it off. It all seems pretty good. Try and roll this, or I might, my best move may be just to do this. Or take a chisel and pry it off. Beating on it might actually mess up. This, for me, is probably a one-time use jig, but anyway. All right, that is just about exactly where I want it to be. So I think we're probably ready to go install this door. So now's the moment of truth. How did we do? And that's fantastic. Hits the stop, looks great. And when I run my finger in there, our doorknob lines up with the latch that's already on the jamb. So again, replacing a door like this really makes a huge difference. And there's probably about 3 million houses out there with those 6-panel doors that someone would love to upgrade those from a hollow core 6-panel to something like this. It's solid core and maybe a little more contemporary.